At Vegusto we get a lot of inquiries about how much vegetarian cat food or dog food they should consume on a daily basis. Can you give some advice on the consumption, on the amounts that dogs should be fed and cats should be fed on a daily basis?
Sure, adult cats and dogs should be fed once or twice per day, really, depending on the animal. Becoming overweight is one of the most common problems with cats and dogs these days. It's becoming more and more prevalent, unfortunately. It's leading to a variety of problems in later life, such as arthritis, diabetes, unfortunately it's a very serious disease, fatty tumours and a decreased lifespan, increased anaesthetic risks and so on. So we certainly want to do all we can to address this. So sometimes products have guidelines written on them for animals of certain body weights. I advise that if there are any such guidelines, these only be treated as a starting point. Every animal is different. Some animals have got higher metabolic rates, some have lower metabolic rates. The important thing, I think, is to be weighing the animal regularly on some reasonably accurate scales once a month, and just seeing if the weight is starting to creep up slowly, then by weighing regularly and by monitoring regularly, you'll be able to notice that early and take steps to address it. So things that people can consider if they're trying to cause a reduction in body weight is firstly cutting out dry food and just switching to tin forms, because tin forms have a high proportion of water, whereas dry food doesn't. So water helps to fill up the stomach, but it hasn't got any calories in it. So that's a starting point. Secondly, transitioning down to 1 meal a day rather than 2 meals a day, cutting out snacks or biscuits during the day, trying to increase exercise, so encouraging cats to chase strings around the house and taking dogs on more walks and longer walks. If we're not achieving a reduction using all of these methods, the weight isn't starting to creep downwards, then of course there's the option of blood tests for hormonal diseases. However, in reality this is very rare. Well over 95% of cases will respond if we actually follow these simple steps of monitoring the weight regularly and taking those dietary steps to bring the weight down to a healthy level. If we're making changes of diet or changing from 2 meals to 1 meal a day, cutting out treats during the day, I recommend that people make those changes gradually over perhaps a week rather than just in 24 hours, because it's less of a shock to the system. So a lot of people like to feed a mixture of wet food, such as this is an example of a wet food product, and also dry kibble as well out of packets. There are indications medically where you might want to feed more of one or more of the other. So, for example, dental disease is a very important and common problem when animals reach middle age and older. In general, dry food helps to scrape the teeth clean more effectively and can help to slow down the onset of dental disease. There are a range of other things that can and should be tried as well, particularly dental chews and pet toothpaste. Whereas wet forms are better for the urinary system. If you've got an animal that's having a problem with the urinary system, such as potentially cystitis or crystals forming in the urine, then you want to flush the urinary system through as much water as possible. So adding water to dry kibble, or better still, feeding simply a wet form of food and encouraging drinking through various means, including the addition of a little bit of salt to the food perhaps if there's no heart disease, can all help to increase the water intake, the amount of water going through the urinary system, flushing any crystals or other toxins out of the system. If you're trying to achieve weight loss, then again, wet food is better than dry, simply because it's got a high water content, so it bulks up the stomach, makes the animal feel satiated, feel full, but the water has no calories in it, of course, whereas dry food forms do. So it depends what you're trying to achieve with the individual animal. If you're trying to keep the teeth clean and the body weight is fine, the urinary system is fine, then more dry food than wet food might be good. Whereas if your primary concern is weight loss, then I would advise really just wet food until you've gotten on top of the body weight, got it down to a healthy level.
And long term, was it good to mix the two, wet and dry, for a balanced?
Yeah, if you don't have a pressing problem with the teeth or the body weight or the urinary system, then a mixture of both wet and dry would be appropriate, and indeed that's what most people choose to do.